I get an alert on my watch, and it sort of just snapped me out of it. It was a verse of the day from my Bible app that I get. I couldn't tell you what the verse was, but just the notification alone was enough for me to like snap out of it while I'm sitting there having this like pity party for myself, essentially. And I get up, I get out of the shower. I'm like, okay, that has to change tomorrow. I started what now I've coined as kind of my 4 check boxes. And every day I'd get up and I'd write on a notepad, faith, family and marriage, business, and health. And I just put little check boxes next to them. And every single day, my only rule with myself was I was going to do one thing in each of those categories. And, you know, to improve my situation.
What's up, Faithful Agents? Welcome back to another episode of the Faithful Agent Podcast. Sadly, my co-host Cole is not here today. He's taking his kids to the dentist, so we can show him a little bit of grace, let him go take care of his kiddos. But I have an amazing guest, Tanner Helm, with me. He is going to be one of our speakers, our featured speakers at the Gathering Conference. You've heard about this if you listen to the show or you're anywhere on social media. It's going to be an incredible experience, us gathering with Christian agents all around the globe to bring praise to the Lord, to build businesses that are excellent to the glory of the Father, and to be excellent at home as well. And Tanner's going to be one of our amazing speakers. Tanner Helm is a real estate entrepreneur, growth coach, and speaker with over 13 years of experience. After building businesses, navigating setbacks, and rebuilding his life through faith and personal responsibility, Tanner now helps real estate agents and entrepreneurs grow in business, leadership, and life. Through his coaching programs, content, and speaking, he equips others to build profitable businesses without sacrificing their faith, family, or purpose. Buddy, you are speaking my language. Tanner, thanks so much for being on, bro. Dude, I just want to dive into and let you tell your story, and we'll just figure out from there, man. But thanks for being on the show, buddy. Excited to hear your story.
I love it, man. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's awesome to do this stuff. I love obviously sharing my story and my testimony and reaching other people. I think this stuff's great. So yeah, we can dive into it. I mean, I don't know how far back you really want to go. You tell me, but I can sort of jump in wherever. Awesome, man.
Yeah,
good deal.
Go wherever.
I'll save you all the childhood stories, you know, and maybe we'll just jump into kind of the professional career. So I got into real estate about 13 years ago, coming on 14 years, and was 19 and had just gotten married, had 2 kids, and really just, obviously went straight from high school into like being a husband and a provider and everything else. And so I was selling copiers originally, and a guy that worked for the same copier company. It was really glamorous, you know, just slinging copiers and printers. But a guy that had worked for that company had transitioned out of that business and he was working with Fidelity Title at the time, and he was a family friend of ours, and he called me one day and was like, "Hey, Fidelity's hiring sales reps. Are you interested?" And I'm like, sure. I knew nothing about real estate, definitely didn't know what title insurance was. Just a kid, really, and took a meeting with the sales manager at Fidelity Title, and it was a great time because they were transitioning from like the quote unquote golden era of title, where it was like steak dinners and golf trips and cruises and everything else, to like, hey, we need actual salespeople, because all that stuff got squashed, especially in California at the time. And so they were in the process of really hiring out like sales professionals, not just people that wanted to go out and kind of wine and dine their clients. And so I started with Fidelity and really quickly learned my territory or my market was this really small area where the average agent was above the age threshold for most agents, which is already a little high. And the title reps in the area had been in the industry for, I think the least amount of time was like 12 years, and they had been in that area. So it was like super small market, older clientele. And I was brand new. And so I came in really as like the young kid teaching agents how to do social media at the time. And 13 plus years ago, it was a lot of like, this is how you make a video and upload it to Facebook. And this is how we can do some Facebook ads. And, really kind of elementary stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But basically that, like, hey, you don't need to do that for your business. But it was, now it's funny because it's like really elementary stuff. But at the time it was groundbreaking. They're like, oh, we could post videos and then run an ad that's not just like boosting my posts. And it's like, yeah. So I did that for a few years. And to make a really long story short, I kind of built up a name for myself as sort of the social media guy. And so a lot of agents were coming to me for that type of stuff. And as I was diving into their businesses, I, was able to get a little deeper look at, first we're helping with marketing. And then it's like, okay, well, if we're generating leads, where are they going? And, what's your sales process to convert leads and things like that. And so I really just got hands on with a lot of agents' business and built up a name for myself doing that. Decided to break off and sort of do my own thing. So I ran, what I'm now calling a consulting agency. At the time, it was sort of just like, hey, anybody that liked me and liked what I did and wanted to pay me, I'd take them on as clients. But it was mostly just kind of consulting agents on growing their business, basically. Did that for a little bit. And as a, 23, 24-year-old kid, I'm like, you know what? I can sell real estate better than half of my clients can, which I had no basis to really determine that. But I did know that I was like helping them generate a lot of business. I was getting really hands-on with their businesses, like I said, running back-end systems and stuff. So jumped into real estate. I guess it would have been 8 or 9 years ago now in Southern California. Just extremely saturated market, very, very competitive, and started a team really quickly. And our first year, we did like 14 or 15 million in volume. It was a decent year, but really just spent the whole first year kind of figuring things out. And then, as one does, when you're a year into starting a new business, we decided to move out of state. So my wife and I and our 3 kids at the time decided to move up to Bend, Oregon. And it was just really lifestyle decision mostly. I think we were living in Orange County, Southern California, and it felt like, the life we wanted as a young family wasn't extremely attainable there. It was like gonna have to be working all the time. I feel like we moved to Bend, and I always, now joking, but at the time not at all. I'm like, when we got to Bend and life had slowed down, I was like, man, I missed the first like 5 years of my kid's life because I was just working nonstop. And so we moved up to Oregon. I got hired on by an independent brokerage there in town as their brokerage coach. And basically, they had like 100 to 120 agents. Really crazy story how I ended up getting hired there. But basically, my job there was to help their agents that were producing but not capping, get them to cap, essentially. That's obviously where the highest ROI is for the brokerage. So I did that for a couple years while building my own personal real estate business. And did that in Oregon for 6 or 7 years, just selling real estate. I didn't really want to go down the team route again because I was coaching and doing so many other ththings. And then, I got out of the industry right after COVID, like 2022. I had an incredible year. It was professionally one of the best years of my life. But I got to the end, and I remember talking to a business mentor in like December of 2022. And I was just so burnt out, and it literally was getting to the point where I remember in December I was having people text me like, "Hey, can we schedule a time to list our house?" And or people wanting showings, and I was just like not responding to them. I just was so burnt out on taking clients. I literally probably left 4 or 5 listings on the table that month, and just completely burnt out. And I was talking to a business mentor of mine, and I'm like, man, I don't feel motivated at all to do more. I've done 60, 65 deals that year, and not that that's incredible by any means, but for a smaller town, it was pretty solid production. I just felt like whether I was doing 6 deals or 60 deals, I was just chasing the next transaction, just waking up every day unemployed basically and trying to find another client. And so ultimately in January, I decided to get out of real estate, and I got a job working as a laborer at a commercial contractor. And my job description.
Sorry, real quick, buddy. So this is January 2023. What if the next level of success in your business has less to do with finding a better strategy and more to do with surrendering to God's?
That question is exactly why we're bringing The Gathering to Northern Virginia on September 10th and 11th at the Dulles Airport Marriott. It's a 2-day experience to help believers in real estate grow not only in their business, but their faith, leadership, families, and impact.
Now, don't get us wrong. We are going deep on business. You'll learn from some of the top agents, leaders, and entrepreneurs in the industry, from lead generation, marketing, social media, systems, leadership, all of it.
But we're also going to wrestle with questions most business conferences never ask, like what would it actually look like to fully surrender your business to God? What happens when you stop building from pressure and start building from purpose?
What if the gifts and the calling God placed inside of you were meant for something far greater than just personal success?
That's the room we built. 2 days of practical business training, authentic community, powerful worship, prayer, and real conversations with people who get your heart and your work.
Because the goal was never just to build a bigger business. It's to build a life that glorifies God and a business that becomes an extension of that calling.
And right now, the first 50 people to register get 50% off.
So if God's been nudging you towards something more, don't wait. Grab your ticket today while the discount's still here. Go to thesaltyagent.com or click the link in the show notes.
Our prayer is that He fills that room with exactly the right people. We'd love for you to be one of them.
Can't wait to gather with you. All right, back to the show.
This would have been January 2023. Yeah.
2020. Okay. And then are you a believer this whole time? Just backtrack
Yeah.
for me super quick. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of, I mean, and again, like, the childhood story's not that
Sure.
crazy, but I grew up in a private school and in church and kind of had always been a believer, more or less. I joke around and be like, I got saved when I was in kindergarten. And then also
Yeah.
every time a cute girl went to an altar call in junior high
There
and
you
high
go.
school, like,
Like,
so I
will
grew
raise
up
that
in
hand. Yeah.
yeah. So I just grew up in that environment, but really
Mm.
after high school is when I feel like I kind of made my faith my own.
Mm.
I had a pretty awesome encounter with God in high school, and he became real to me. I feel like for the first time, it was always just, I mean, it sounds weird, but you grow up in a small Christian school, it's like part of your curriculum. So it like being a Christian was no different than math or science to me. It was just like part of what everybody did. And so, yeah, high school, I would say I kind of encountered God for the first time truly. And then after high school is when I was like, all right, this is like, I felt like I took on my own faith. I'm like, okay, this is mine now, not just something I was taught growing up.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
Okay.
definitely a believer, but I would say during that time, a really skewed understanding of what a believer is, particularly in the marketplace, I guess. I just sort of always felt like it was detached. And this, sometimes lands on the wrong audience, so forgive me if it does, but it was always like I grew up in a church that was very not intentional about it as far as business goes, but the underlying message was kind of like the more broke and miserable you are, the holier you are. It was like kind of frowned upon to have a successful business. And like I said, it wasn't directly preached that way, but it was like you're either a pastor or worship leader or a missionary. If you're not one of those things, you can't really be serving God with your work. And so not that I had like fully adopted that or made that my identity, but I was just really detached from having God involved in my business for sure. And I really think, after 3+ years of processing, I really think that's part of why I was so burnt out, because I mean, his hand was all over my business, just blessing me left and right. And I just really didn't steward it well. And so I think that the emptiness of business during that time was that I just didn't feel like I was stewarding it. I kind of, for lack of a better word, sort of disrespected the blessing that was all over my business at the time. It was just kind of like, this is work, this is my spirituality, kind of keep them separate. And there wasn't a lot really tied to my business. And in a weird way, I had always had my identity so wrapped up in my business and who I was as a business person. It's like I was, pretty young when I got into the world of entrepreneurship and business. And so, for a long time, it was like how great it was that I was young and successful. And again, it's all relative. I'm not like, at the time, I'm not like doing incredible. It was just relatively successful for a 26-year-old, or whatever.
Sure.
As you get older, you kind of lose that. Like, I'm not the young guy anymore. So I like sort of lost that chip on my shoulder, I guess. And then, just felt completely burnt out. And like I said, ended up go in and work in a labor job for a commercial contractor. And the extent of my job description was literally like, we were building this massive, I don't even know how big, 30,000 something square foot warehouse for medical devices. And I would start in one corner in the morning and sweep the entire warehouse behind all the subs. If I happened to get to the other side by the end of the day, then I'd go back to the corner I started in and sweep all the way over. That's what I did for like 3 months. It was really weird. I just kind of, I feel like I lost my identity completely. And you know, I had tried to, you know, I tried and failed to convince my wife that that was somehow better for me. But she was like, I mean, sure, if that's what you need to do, you know, do it.
It actually sounds kind of
so,
good, to be honest, Tanner, right? When you're just like in the throes of it, like I just want to go where I can throw headphones in, someone's going to tell me what to do, and it's just mindless like that. Like almost is appealing to me. I'm not going to go tell my wife because she won't go for that, right? But
I don't recommend it. Yeah, my wife didn't either, but she also, you know, knows I'm extremely stubborn.
Sure,
But yeah, I honestly think that was part of it. It was like clock in, clock out, don't have to think about anything. It was also, you know, in a really weird and twisted way, it was like this instant gratification of like at the end of the workday, I knew what I had completed. And that quickly, I mean, literally after 3 months, I went in for my 90-day review and put in my 2 weeks notice because I'm like, I can't do this, you know, forever. So it was like really, you know, I say snapped out of it, but snapped out of that portion of it. I stayed in construction and started working for a custom home builder, and we were framing and siding. And that to me was very like fulfilling in a sense of like, I'm working with my hands. I'm, you know, at the end of the day, I could see like, hey, we stood up these walls today and framed a house. Like that's, you know, that instant gratification that was missing a lot of times in real estate. You know, it's like you're working 24/7 and occasionally get a commission check type of thing. And so, yeah, I did that for about a year. So that took us, you know, take us into 2024 now, and was working construction. I still to this day kind of will say that I'm basically unemployable because after about a year of that, I'm like, all right, I can't do this. But me just being me was like, well, I'll start a contracting business, you know, like I'm doing construction now, might as well just be a contractor. And was able to partner with a guy in town that I had known well. He had done some remodels for us when I was doing real estate, some fix and flip stuff, and partnered with him, grew, you know, helped to grow that business a little bit, and kind of got my contractor's license. And then in June, I guess it would have been June or July of 2023. I'm a year off. So 22. So this would be 23. 22 was when I quit. January 2022 was when I got out of the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So now we're, you know, mid 23 basically.
Yep.
And I guess let's backtrack a little bit. December of 2022, I'm still working construction. And this is really kind of like the pivotal point for me. We're living in Oregon. We, you know, my wife is having to go to work because I'm no longer financially providing for us. And so we lived about 45 minutes outside of town, and our routine was I'd get off work at like 4 o'clock. We'd meet at an exit on the highway. I'd take the kids. She'd go into work for the night, and then I'd, you know, take the kids home, do dinner, whatever. So, you know, it's one afternoon. I pick up the kids. There's you know, it's snowing on the highway pretty bad where we were at. And on the way home we had just exchanged the kids, and we get back on the highway, and on the way home, we hit ice and slide into oncoming traffic and get into a pretty gnarly head-on collision. You know, it's me, the 4 kids in the car. And it was, I mean, it sucks to say that that's really what it took, but it was like the start of opening my eyes by any means. I wish I could say things changed really quickly, but I think, you know, sitting on the side of the road, I'd called my wife and said, hey, you know, we got in an accident. Everybody's okay, but I need you to get back here because my truck was totaled completely. We had missed, when we hit ice, we slid into oncoming traffic, and we had missed a large like box van we literally hit the car right behind them. And so, you know, now looking back on it, I'm like, we were a split second away, and not to be dramatic about it, but like we hit that box van, the outcome is a lot different than, you know, hitting the little sedan that we hit behind it. And so I'm sitting there on the highway. My wife's sitting in traffic that our accident caused because it's just a 1-lane highway. And so she's waiting for the police to get down to her so they could bring her back up to the scene. Kids are still all shooken up, and I'm just sitting there like, this is opposite of everything I'm supposed to be as a husband and a father. And that was like really the reality that hit me there, was like, I was fully out of control, I wasn't driving recklessly or anything, but just out of control of the vehicle. I put my kids in danger. I put a tremendous amount of stress on my wife. And I really feel like it was sort of, that moment was like a reflection of where I had taken our family, where I had led our family over the last like 2 years, year and a half. And so shortly after that accident, we had some good friends that have been mentors for us. They were actually used to be my youth pastors, and they've remained kind of marriage mentors for us and things like that. They reached out to me and they're like, hey, there's this men's conference that our church puts on down in San Diego. It's in March. You need to get there. And I don't, when they call, I usually don't ask too many questions. I'm just like, all right, cool. They're just always on, it feels like. So I'm like, all right, men's conference, got it. Book the ticket. Let's go. And so, the 3 months in between the accident and the men's conference was pretty brutal. I mean, I was having severe anxiety attacks. I, was still working the construction job, which at that time I knew like, hey, this is going nowhere. And knew that I needed to get out of it, but didn't know where to go. And we went to lunch the day before I left for the conference, and it was getting to the point where, my wife basically was like, stay down there as long as you need to stay, but come back ready to fix things, basically. Come back ready to put in the work. Come back ready, or come back different, at least, like something has to change while you're down there. And so I go to the conference. It was great. It was like the first time in years I felt like I had really encountered God again, and just felt, so it wasn't unfamiliar, but it was foreign because it had been so long. So it felt, I always tell everybody, like, I didn't feel like I got some like life-changing, encounter there, whatever, but it was like almost like catching the warm sun after winter or something, where it was like, oh my gosh, I missed being in this presence, I missed being in this moment. And it was great. Went to the conference for 3 days. While we're down there, the church is talking about how they're planting a church in Boise, and Idaho had always kind of been on our radar. And so I come home and I basically am like, hey, I think we should check out Idaho. Like, the church is being planted there. We knew quite a few people that were moving up to be a part of the church plant. It's a community that we've always really, been somewhat involved in and had been connected with pretty well. And it sort of felt like Oregon had ran out. Like, there was no more juice to squeeze there. We had sort of been through it. We had lost ties with some of our community. The church was going through a weird transition that we were a part of. And so, that was March or April of 23. And by July, we had moved, basically.
Wow.
There was a lot of things that lined up. The kids' school happened to have one spot in each of their classes left.
Wow.
When we first started looking over here, my wife, pulls up a community and she's like, if we could find a house in this community, I'd move tomorrow. We literally are living in that community now. Like, just
awesome.
Things lined up crazy of like how it all played out. So we move, we put our house in Oregon on the market, and I feel like when we did that, it was like all hell broke loose. Like, the next 2 years was just the most aggressive, miserable transition of our lives, basically. Like, weren't able to sell the house, had to get tenants there. We move here. I'm trying to build a construction business here now because I still have no idea what I'm doing with my life. I'm just trying to figure it out. My first several projects with the construction business go terribly sideways. Client tries to cancel after we had finished like 80% of the job, wants to sue me for the deposit back. Struggling to get business. And it gets to a point where basically, my wife's working, and this is now, kind of skimming over a year, but this is now fall of 2024. I now have, essentially a failed business, debt from trying to start that business, and my wife's going to work every day to sort of make ends meet, and I have nothing coming in. I have nothing going on. I'm like riddled with anxiety, fallen into depression. I would get up in the morning because she was leaving the house at like 6:30 in the morning. I'd get up in the morning and basically pretend like I was getting ready to go to work that day. And just because I genuinely felt so like terrible about myself that I'm like sleeping in bed with nothing on the calendar and my wife's getting up to go to work. And so I'd get up and essentially pretend to get ready, and then she'd leave the house, and most days I'd crawl back into bed and couldn't really muster up any, like I just had nothing going on. And so I decided to get my real estate license because I'm like, you know what? I've always done that. My wife was like incredibly encouraging through that time. And she's like, just get back into real estate. Like, you're good at it. Just do that again. And I mean, I think part of that was encouragement, and part of it was like, just do anything, please. Yeah.
Better than being in bed. Yeah.
Right. And, we really, I really got to, what I consider my lowest was fall of 2024. And, got to the point where essentially I'm always so hesitant to say it because it's like, I feel like it's turned into like a trendy thing in people's testimony, but I was like, I was suicidal. I was, not to the point of ever really doing anything, but definitely like that's where my head was at, where I was like, this is not working for me. I'm not taking care of my family. I'm not even like at one point I at least could lean back on like, hey, I'm providing, and I wasn't even doing that anymore. And so I have like, the rock bottom. I'm like having one of those good, like sitting in the shower crying for like 2 hours and, kind of thinking through all my options. What, maybe it's better if I'm not here. What could I do, to change things today? And it had just got like the mountain had gotten so overwhelming of like the debt, and no light at the end of the tunnel. Like even when I was running a business, if things were going south, I'm like, oh, I've got this deal closing, or I've got these clients coming in or whatever. And this was like nothing, like literally nothing on the table. And, I'm, wearing my watch in the shower, and I get an alert on my watch, and it sort of just snapped me out of it. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you. I know it was a verse of the day from my Bible app that I get, but I couldn't tell you what the verse was. I couldn't tell you, I wish I could say it was some like powerful verse that changed my life, but just the notification alone was enough for me to like snap out of it while I'm sitting there having this like pity party for myself, essentially. And I get up, I get out of the shower, I weigh myself. I'm like 340 pounds. I'm like, okay, that has to change tomorrow. Like that's got to change right away. And so I basically started, really with my health, but I started, what now I've coined, I guess, if you will, as kind of my 4 check boxes. And every day I'd get up and I'd write on a notepad, faith, family and marriage, business, and health. And I just put little check boxes next to them. And every single day, my only rule with myself was I was going to do one thing in each of those categories, and, to improve my situation. So, health was easy because I'm like, okay, get up, go to the gym. I was cold plunging at the time. So I'm like cold plunge and prayer, knock out health and faith all at once, and then, business, like I say it now, kind of laughing about it, but some days it was like return an email. Like you got people asking for money, like return an email for somebody that you couldn't pay when you were supposed to pay them. And so now they're waiting for like literally that, or like answer the phone. Like that was the steps I could take for business. And so I started doing that. My health obviously started to gain some momentum, relatively quickly. I started losing weight, and that sort of, spiraled into everything else. I'd plugged in with the community at church. So I'm, going to men's prayer. I'm talking with a few guys about my situation. And, beginning of 2025, we have every year our church does, the first Sunday of the year, they call it Vision Sunday. And it's very, it's just about, casting your vision for the year, basically. And, I have a note in my phone that I'll probably share at the gathering. Maybe I'm still going back and forth, but I've gotten this, essentially vision. I always tell people, like, I think in the way my brain works is I think in dialogue. So I'm having conversations in my head all the time, But that day in church, I got like a scene from a movie, basically, like that, and which was foreign to me because I don't really think in images ever. I think in dialogue, and so it was my wife and I. We were sitting on the couch. It was after Christmas, so in between Christmas and New Year's, at the end of 2025, and this is a year, 12 months later. I'm basically having this vision of me in the future, and it was just so detailed. I could see it all. It was detailed enough that I started pulling it out live and taking notes. Of what I was seeing, what I was experiencing. But it was just like this year. Things are going to change. We were sitting there and talking about how work debt had been paid off, and talking about how the business had become a success, and talking about how healthy the kids were, and I looked and felt different. She looked and felt different, and all these things. And that was it. It was really powerful. Like it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, I saw, something that could change. And, but then, church wraps up and we go home, and I'm like, cool, this is still my life. I'm still in the middle of this, dealing with this. And, the next week at men's prayer, we do a Tuesday morning prayer every morning. The next week I'm praying, and I'm just like, kind of like having one of those moments where I'm talking to God like I'm pissed at him. I'm like, what's going on? Like, you say you'll guide my steps, blah, blah, blah. And then I hear, the voice of the Lord, the Spirit, basically say, like, what steps? Like, you're not taking any steps. I can't guide steps you're not taking. And that was for me when I was like, shoot, okay. And so I just started, like I said, kind of kept that momentum, but I'm like, all right, I'm going to be really intentional about work and my prayer life, and, the health and the marriage, obviously, like, was always working on. But things just start to fall into place in January. Like, I get a call from somebody I'd worked with in title like 12 plus years ago. And they're like, hey, we've got this opportunity. Are you interested? And I'm like, dude, I have nothing on my plate right now, like at
Like,
all.
let me check my
I'm
schedule.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
When you
not
want to
saying
meet,
that. Yeah, I'm like not telling him that, but he's like, oh, you want to hear about an opportunity? I'm sure you got stuff going on. I'm like, yeah, dude, I would love nothing but an opportunity right now. And so I take that call. I get a pretty good gig consulting with a local brokerage, helping them with their closing partners, their closing service partners. In the spring, I get, so I start that job, which is like, okay, cool. Check box one. Like, I have an income again, right? Like that's already a massive upgrade in my life. And then I have some friends reach out in the spring. They're relocating here, and I'm like, cool, time to put the real estate license to use. And so I help them, close a house. I'm like, all right, we got some momentum. I'm working now full time. We're coming into summer, and the brokerage has an opportunity to take over leadership for the state of Idaho. And I'm like, cool, let's do it. So I start doing that, and just like, I'm skimming over a lot for the sake of time, but it's like, just momentum starts building, and it's like one thing after another. It's like unexplainable, like I said, just kind of opportunities coming up. And by fall, I had 10 or 11 deals closed. I had a handful in escrow, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing real estate full time again. I'm still working this other job, which is amazing because it's like consistency that, I haven't had in years. Plus the real estate business is growing. And this is just like, 2 years ago now, coming up on fall of 2024. But things really start to fall into place. And so I start really just reaching out to God, like, what does this business look like? What can I do? Like, how can I steward it well this time? Like, how, like, I felt like I sort of got a second chance at real estate. As silly as that sounds, some people are like, why do you even want a first chance? But I feel like I got a second chance at real estate, and I was able to approach it in such a better place, definitely a much more humble place, and definitely a place where I'm like, this is, there's so much in real estate that kind of plays to, you know, my strengths, my personality, how God designed me to be. How can I really steward that well this time? And so it's just been kind of one thing after another of really handing over my business to God. And I would say, like, over the last 2 years, that's really been the journey I've been on of like, what does it really look like to hand your business over to God? And The opportunities that have come from it have been amazing. I've been able to grow the business great, been able to, um, you know, keep all the work that I've had, which was a struggle for a long time, and sort of build, build a real estate business with intention and, not just transacting real estate, but, now this coaching program with a perspective of, I've always been able to help real estate agents grow their business, but I have this fresh perspective of like operating in your identity and
Mm.
being able to, you know, steward your strengths and steward the blessing of your business. And it's been a crazy journey, like really crazy upward trajectory of, rebuilding the business. Like I said, doing it in a way that, gives glory to God, doing it in a way where He's first in the business, which was super foreign to me, and learning a ton as I go, and still, actively digging out of a hole from, 2+ years ago with the failed business, but every day, making progress, and
Mm.
have kept the same principles of like, yeah, every day it looks a lot different now because I have so much more going on, but like the goals are still the same. Like do one thing in each of those categories every day to improve. And, just watching kind of the compound effect of that over time has been pretty awesome.
It's amazing. The boxes were faith, family and marriage, business, and health, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
not
awesome.
necessarily in that order. I'd probably say
Sure.
health, faith, health, family and marriage, business
Yeah.
in order of importance.
That's
But,
amazing.
but yeah,
Dude, I love it.
it was just all I
Yeah.
had. It was my formula for trying to improve, like
Mm.
I was like, I can muster up 4 actions each day to improve myself.
Mm. That's amazing.
Quick question for you. Did you get into real estate to create more freedom for yourself and for your family, to live a more faith-filled and purposeful life? Now, if that is true, and I believe it probably is, let me ask you this question. Do you feel like you're having to be on your phone almost around the clock? And do you feel like you oftentimes have to work weekends when you'd rather be at church or with your family? Or do you feel like you're constantly chasing attention on social media? Now, does all that feel like freedom? For many, it does not. The good news is this. The Homeowner Concierge is a simple platform that scales your referral relationships. It's not just dependent upon the relationships that you have, but the referral relationships that your preferred vendors have. Now, if you're interested again in having more referrals, so much that you don't have to live in scarcity, you can live in abundance, and you can have that freedom that you desired, I want you to go to proinsight.com/faithful. Like the Faithful Agent podcast. Again, it's proinsight.com/faithful. You're going to watch a quick video there. If what you see there resonates, you're going to schedule some time together, and I'll walk you through how we're helping real estate agents to, again, scale their referral relationships and finally get the freedom that you desire.
Dude, I love it. Like, I honestly probably just going to wrap it there. I mean, I want you to tell them how to find you, but I don't know that I want to add to that. Like, what a story of the Lord's faithfulness in your life, right?
Yeah.
And this wayward son running from thing to thing, and to the point where you just, it's almost the prodigal son idea, right? Like you just ran away and squandered it, and then the Lord in His kindness, like, more than welcomed you back, killed the fatted calf for you, right? Allowed you to build your business. He's not a God that just is like, well, now you're just going to sit in the mud because you blew it, right? I mean, He's just so gracious, dude. It just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
How incredibly gracious He is, and you're living that, right, in your life right now. And man, we don't have time to go into how that's affected your kids and your wife, and all
Yeah.
the ways, the ripple effect of how the Lord will use you now to just bring Him glory and praise. And you'll still do dumb things, because we all do, right?
Yeah.
But He clearly can overcome those bad choices, thankfully, or none of us would be here, right?
Yeah.
Man, it's just awesome. Like, it really is. I appreciate your just vulnerability and willingness to share that. I think is such a reminder. Because how many, I don't know, we prayed about this before the show, right? Like, the Lord they're going to hear this whenever they hear it, whenever the Lord wants them to hear it. And I don't know if they're in a great spot or they're in a dark spot, or, whatever it is. But I think the reality is there's hope. If you trust in Christ, there is always hope, not just for eternity. That's what matters, but like even for today. There is hope. But get up and do something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, you can't, like, how do I tell your steps where to go if you're not taking steps? Like, just get up and do something, right?
Yeah.
You're going to make a ton of dumb decisions, but the Lord's going to order those steps. And, anyways, dude, I love it, man. Man, I'm like, we should wrap. I just want to keep going, but you will have you back for part 2. Where can they go connect with you, buddy? Or I know you got coaching launching. We've talked some about that, right? Or tell me about that real quick.
We're launched. We're like, 6 weeks or so up and running. Put together a really cool program. It's really, it was birthed out of a place of, sort of building this business that plays to my strengths and plays to things I'm passionate about. And so that's really what it is. I'm super passionate about helping agents grow their business. We're up and running. We've got, I think, 20 agents in the program now. And it's all just focused around business growth. Obviously, my faith's a big part of it. I think everybody in the program right now is, a believer to some extent. So it's, not every call is a sermon, but it definitely plays a role of just like playing to your strengths, leveraging it, turning your, taking responsibility for your daily actions and being strategic and intentional about what those daily actions are, but turning the outcomes over to God is just such a major focus, because I think, we can only control so much, and we can control our daily activity, and we can control, how we choose to operate business. But it's all focused on business growth. It's not like a plug and play program where it's like, hey, here's my 10 steps. And then if you do all those things, hopefully it works. It's all very tailored and customized to the people in the program. It goes against the grain of what everybody told me to do. But it's all very, very tailored, customized. It's been awesome. And I truly love, getting to know people's business, what's working for them, what's not working, and then figuring out, brainstorming, how we can be strategic, how we can be intentional, how we can leverage it, and ultimately get everybody to their goals. I have every type of agent in the program, as far as, I got one agent that's part-time, and her goal is to be full-time by this time next year. She's like ready to go full-time as an agent, all the way up to a client of mine that's doing 70 plus deals a year and scaling a team. And so we're really diving deep on scaling a team and the systems he has to put in place to do that effectively, and kind of everything in between. So it's awesome. It is a group program, but there's also a one-on-one aspect to it, where I'm working one-on-one with everybody in the program on their business specifically. And it's been great. It's by far my favorite thing to do right now.
So other than being on this show with me, right?
Well, this, of course.
And then we just can't do this all the time.
Actually, my favorite thing to do is what I'll be doing in September, which is coming out and speaking. That's my favorite thing to do. If I could do more of that.
Guys, come meet
that?
Tanner.
I slid that
Helm.
in.
That was nice.
It was unintentional, but
Dude,
I did
you
it.
must be good at social media. Like, you just know how to do it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it, man. So, okay, how do they go find out about that program if they want to check it out?
Yeah, it's just follow me on Instagram. That's the easiest way to do it. It's just my name, cool. Tanner Helm. Connect with me on Instagram. Somebody will reach out, probably from my team, if not me personally. Yeah. There's information on there. We've got a school community as well, which is like super low ticket for what you're getting. And I put resources in there weekly. Again, kind of all the same focus, just business growth. That's really what it's all about. And it, turns into personal growth as well. I think that's super important. I think, that's one of my kind of core values, if you will, is like always be growing, always be developing. And so, obviously there's a massive part in that in business, but personally as well, just becoming the best version of myself, and always learning what that is and what that's not also.
Yeah. It's awesome, man. I love it, dude. Man, so good to have you on, buddy. You all need to come in September and hang out with really Tanner. He's cooler than me, but I'm pretty short. You might not be able to see me. I guess I don't know how tall you are, Tanner, but you'll notice him. So yeah, it's a mystery. That's right. Come find out how tall Tanner is at the gathering in September. Man, such a joy to have you on, buddy. I'm so excited you'll be there and for us to get to hang out in person. And Faithful Agents, I love you, and I appreciate y'all coming back week after week. Share this with a friend that maybe is in a hard spot. Encourage them with just the faithfulness of the Lord as told through Tanner's story. We love you, Faithful Agents, and we will see you next week. Hey, Christian Agent, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If it resonated, would you take 30 seconds and share it with another agent who's also trying to grow their business without losing their faith, family, or peace? That's how this message spreads. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes. I release new ones each Thursday to help you build success that actually lasts. It genuinely fires me up knowing this podcast is helping you pursue excellence to the glory of God, both at work and at home. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode of The Faithful Agent.